Hey everybody, it's Nick and Jay, and we have just returned from the Yokohama Joliet Prison Break at Autobahn Country Club. Now, this race used to be in July, and we have moved it to April because the July event was a million degrees.
Yeah, it was terrible. So we moved it earlier in the year, and in fact, it was freezing. There was snow, there was rain, there were actually tornadoes. It was terrible.
Yeah, and the fact that it was cold for that particular day may lead some people to claim that this is why global warming is a great conspiracy.
Just a hoax.
Yeah, but we think that it's actually evidence of the real secret, which is that Chicago weather sucks balls.
It is terrible. Not like California.
Winter, spring, summer, or fall.
Yeah, now you'll notice a little bit of shameless branding there. I don't know what to say about that. But I will say it seems to be working.
There are a couple new penalties for this race. We had a team deliver us an entire box full of combination master locks and a text list of the combinations.
Yeah.
And teams that were penalized had to go through and match the two.
We also had the Read the Classic Car Review penalty.
While attached on the floaty side, it still possesses a surprisingly high level of grip and overall handling composure, could allow it to be driven hard with a few negative effects.
It can be thrown around with near reckless abandon.
Some of this can be contributed to the rather meaty 215, 55, 16 tires that come with the optional floor package.
And 540 even has dynamic stability control standard, which my car does not.
And lastly, because this is Chicago, home of Victory Auto Wrecking and their famous TV commercials, we had a couple of teams reenact that.
Very hella sweet was Bad Decisions Racing. They brought a whole bunch of really cool cars. This time they brought a Jianshen Nushen JCB 6200.
No, right? It was the Jianshu Nushen JB 6500, which of course is a bootleg Chinese copy of the GM Dustbuster minivan.
And let me just say, if you're gonna pirate a vehicle, why not that one?
Yeah.
Now, the real Jianshu Nushen copy of a Pontiac Transport is rear drive. It's got a Chrysler 2.2 up front. Somehow, I don't know how they even do that. So these guys, they started with a Transport. Unfortunately, they were not truly historically accurate. It is still a front drive General Motors product, but they made it look really good. And best of all, I think, in Chinese characters on one side, it said
free candy on one side.
That was good. But even better was on the other side, it said Hell Kitty had the line.
Now, Hell Kitty, as you know, is the car and driver official racing team.
Right.
Now, they've replaced their long-running Honda Prelude, and I've got to say, pretty successful eventually.
Yes, no, it took them a while, but I think they got second place with that car a couple of times.
They've replaced that car. They figured that power was really the thing that was holding them back.
That's right.
And they have replaced the Prelude with the BMW E46, which budgetarily maybe had some issues.
Those motherfuckers should have gotten like 70 laps.
Yeah, how do you feel? How about you?
For the Prelude? No way.
No, for the E46.
Oh,
the one that
is the dealer lot. That's like on the front page of the cheater index.
Yeah, how about you?
But I'm sure all that extra power and handling made them drive infinitely better.
I did a 180 right after the end of the back straight.
Recall Racing had our first ever Chevy Cobalt.
Hard to believe.
Yeah, which is really hard to believe. And the recall they're referring to, of course, is the ignition switch recall that affected these cars. Apparently, if you put a keychain that was a little too heavy, it would actually shut the ignition off, killing the power brakes, the power steering, and by the time you crash into the trees, it would also have killed the airbag system.
Yeah. Now, you will be familiar with this because, of course, there was the meme going around. General Motors wrote a memo, and it got leaked out to the public, and it said, these are words you should not use while discussing this particular situation. Rolling sarcophagus, Kevorkian-esque. There were about 70 words, and they were all brilliant.
Yeah. And there were certain people, General Motors apologists mostly, that said, you know, this whole thing, every car company has their problems, and you guys are just going after General Motors, you know, you need to be more patriotic. We figured, look, we're scientific people. We should put this to the test. Let's put a marginally heavier than normal keychain onto this ignition switch and see what happens. Sure enough, they went over a bump. Not during the race, mind you. We did this under very strict
controlled
safety
circumstances,
controlled conditions. They went over a bump. That thing shut the hell off. So there you go. We've proved it.
Yep, rolling sarcophagus. Judge's choice went to the Beer and Jelly Beans Cougar. They did a fabulous ecto cooler theme with sort of a Ghostbusters thing tied up into it. It was a good car from a good era. It's very Radwood ready. They had good costumes. Just very impressive stuff.
So you remember Big Willie? Yeah, it was a Chevy Caprice with the big whale tail on it. So anyway, they crashed that
Had
car.
the blowhole.
Yeah. They crashed it. They decided, everything about this car was great. Let's make it live on. So they took the drivetrain out, put it in a Mazda RX-7, and according to Phil's notes, it was undrivable in the rain, it was undrivable in the snow, it was undrivable in the dry. Eventually, they gave up, packed up, went home.
Yeah, it was butt terrible. Speaking of butt-terrible V8 Mazda swaps, there was also the V8-powered Miata, the same guys who do the Showgirls and the Greatest Show on Earth. Yeah. Those cars were brilliantly prepared. Their Miata, not so much. It was truly butt-terrible. And, of course, it created an internet furor. Everyone on the internet, which is to say Matt Adair, was furious about this car. It was DFL.
Our friends, the Little Lebowski Urban
Underachievers.
They're the Achievers. Yeah. They've done okay. Yeah. And in fact, this race, they had a brilliant indoor windshield wiper because they could never get the defroster vent to work. Why? You know what? Let's just put a windshield wiper on the inside of the window. It was brilliant. Yeah. And, these guys have done enough races and they've had enough success to where that kind of little detail is all that's left. They've already tackled all of the big problems.
Heroic Fix went to the nice and slow Autosports Saturn. Now, this was one of two cars that independently came up with Ford GT at Le Mans parody themes. Yep. But they showed up, this car, with a terminal rod knock to the inspection. I mean, the thing was barely holding together. They finally found another engine. I think they got it in the middle of the snowstorm on Saturday. They did get the car back out. It was not super fast, but they did take the checkered flag. There you go.
I Got Screwed went to the United Partnership of Pentastar Racers.
UPPPP.
Now these guys they're a group of General Motors engineers racing a Mitsubishi-powered Chrysler. Right. Why is this formula not working? Because of their repeated failures, the judges have told them, look, you guys can cheat as hard as you want.
Spend whatever you want.
Yeah, and the results have always been the same. Utterly hopeless. And this race was started off a little different. They were actually leading Class C, and actually leading Class C pretty late into the race.
Yeah, and by a fair amount. And then, of course, their homemade, totally jankified fuse panel, remember that part about GM engineers, totally melted down, caught everything on fire. The car was hell and butt done. But no, they got it back out there, and they were clawing their way back, and then the black flag started.
I prostrate myself in front of the court, and I will...
Prostrate yourself?
So they got knocked back down all the way to the bottom. They were this close to winning twice. They did not. They got screwed. Organizer's choice went to the Pacemakers and their Dodge Intrepid. One of the team members inherited this car from his grandmother in Florida, which is kind of the only way now you're going to get a Dodge Intrepid.
That's where you find them.
We were talking about this before we started filming, and Nick pointed out they made about 800 million of these cab-forward Chryslers, How many have you seen lately? None, because they are all hella dead. They were that bad. The transmissions, I think, were made out of recycled glass. Anyway, these guys got one. They knew it was going to be a race car because it was the Sport Edition with the big block 214 horsepower V6.
High output.
Yeah, and it was terrible. They only did 188 laps, but they looked good doing it because they did the whole thing up as an old man with Barry Goldwater glasses and a big mustache and a nose. The car was sort of tilting around like a drunken old guy in the ward. It was really good to see. Now, the four of you who are watching these videos know that Judge Phil has moved from a fascination with Soviet bloc dictators into a fascination with South and North Korean dictators. We don't know why, but it's great to watch the transition.
So every time a Korean car shows up at the race, Phil's always, it's Sigmund Rhee! And at this race, he about busted a gasket because there was not one, but four Korean cars. Yeah. And he's like, you gotta do a whole feature on the Korean cars. And look, we only have so much time here, so let us just boil it down to the 3 out of the 4 Korean cars that actually won an award at this event.
Which I have to say, 75% penetration.
Yeah.
Pretty impressive. You want to win? Bring a Korean car. Yeah. Now, the first trophy was the Avid Fleet Racing Sonata, which won Class C convincingly.
Now, the second Korean car to win an award was the terribly awesome racing Hyundai Excel X Spank Provenance.
That's right.
And it won the Lee Myung-bak Special Trophy. Now, Lee Myung-bak was a former president of South Korea who just went to jail for accepting bribes. Basically, he's the Korean Rod Blagojevich.
Yeah. And the third was the IOE, and this was won by the Wonderment Consortium, kind of well on their way to creating a dynasty here without using a Dodge Dynasty. Right. So they had their Hyundai Scoop. It was a terrible car that's never finished anything. It barely drove into the trailer after its last race. They did not touch it. They rolled it out of the trailer for this race. Ran all weekend. It was spectacular. Congratulations, guys. Here's Lemons in a nutshell.
Something strange in your neighborhood. Who you gonna call? Ghostbusters! If there's something weird and it don't look good, who you gonna call? Ghostbusters!
You'll never mess with me again. Man, he takes the beat.
All right, judges.
And it's like, I can guarantee you, nobody actually said that before the memo.
We need to call a meeting. Stat. 50 dudes in bad suits shuffle in. Okay. I don't care how ridiculous you may think it is. I'll throw out some words.
Samuel Sarcophagus, what's on your mind?
Rolling sarcophagus. Good. You're promoted. This is how this works in the real world.